All righty, we're up to item number 14. This is resolution number 3714-19. It's the remedial site development order for the Evans Square subdivision tree removal. At this time, I'll turn it over to Mr. Cobb for a brief introduction.
Thank you, Mayor. This is a request of council to approve remedial site development order 498-19, which replaces remedial site development order 496-19 to provide for tree removal on lots 2, 3, 4, and 29 of the Evans Square subdivision. The proposed trees for removal are a 30-inch laurel oak tree on lot 2, a 40-inch live oak tree on lot 3, a 25-inch magnolia tree on lot 4, and a 24-inch rain tree pecan tree on lot 29. The laurel oak tree and the live oak tree are considered heritage trees by the city's land development code. Thus, their replacement requires an inch-for-inch replacement. The total number of required replacement trees per the code is 36. At its March 4th, 2019 meeting, the City Council adopted Resolution 3699, which approved remedial site development order 496-19, which permitted the removal of the requested trees subject to the following conditions. Prior to the issuance of a clearing, grading, and tree removal permit, the developer owner shall pay $9,000 into the city's tree bank and donate $50,000 to the Friends of Oviedo, which donation is the result of the overall community adverse impact resulting from the loss of the requested trees and in lieu of code enforcement actions that could have been brought forth by the city. 2, the owner-developer would plant 2 6-inch caliber trees on each of the lots 2, 3, 4, and 29, in addition to the required lot trees that were approved as part of the preliminary subdivision plan to replace the requested tree, and this had to be done prior to the issuance of the respective certificates of occupancy on lots 2, 3, 4, and 29. Then prior to the issuance of the last certificate of occupancy for the subdivision, the owner-developer would plant up to 36 canopy trees, not including pine trees, in the subdivision common areas for which survivability is certified by a certified arborist. And the owner-developer would install shade structures over the park bench and 2 picnic tables for a total of 3 shade structures within the subdivision's neighborhood park. On March 19, 2019, the city received a letter from the Area General Counsel for the owner-developer that the representative at the March 4th meeting did not have the authority to bind the owner-developer and requested City Council's consideration of the following alternative mitigation for City Council's permission to remove the requested trees. 1, the owner-developer would pay $9,000 into the city's tree bank within 30 days. 2, the owner-developer would plant the 2 6-inch caliper trees on each of the lots 2, 3, 4, and 29, in addition to the required trees by the preliminary subdivision plan. And then 3, the owner would plant up to 36 caliper trees, not including pine trees, in the subdivision with the consent of the homeowners and the HOA before the last certificate of occupancy is issued for the subdivision. Now, Resolution 3714-19 approves the remedial site development order number 498-19, which approves the removal of the requested trees subject to the conditions of approval that reflect the mitigation strategies offered by the owner-developer. City Council's policy direction for these trees were that they would be preserved when the Council approved the Evans Square preliminary subdivision plan. As such, any request to remove the subject trees is considered a change to City Council's policy directive that the subject trees be preserved. Thus, this matter is a policy decision of the City Council inasmuch as the tree protection requirement was imposed by the Council as part of the development approval, and thus any modification of that development approval is within the scope of the jurisdiction of the City Council. Therefore, staff seeks City Council's policy direction regarding Resolution number 3714-19 and remedial site development order number 498-19, which is proposed to replace remedial site development order number 496-19. That's our presentation, Mayor.
All righty. Thank you, Mr. Cobb. It seems like it's Groundhog Day here. We've heard this item once before, but I guess we'll hear it again. Is the applicant present? Come on up. Just name and address for the record, please.
Absolutely. My name is Brent Bartholomew, Division President for David Weekly Homes. I appreciate and thank you for reopening this and letting us talk about it again. And again, the reason it's here was we heard a good recap for it. Stephen's a builder who does build for us and is employed by David Weekley. However, he does not have the official capacity to speak on our behalf. So again, thank you all for rehearing this. And as you heard a second ago, the request to go back through it and look through items 1 through 3 on page 7 of your recap sheet to replace what was originally approved back on March 4th with Stephen present.
And do you have the authority to speak for the?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay.
Yes, sir, I do. As far as the trees are concerned, I did see the minutes, I saw the video, and I understand the back and forth, and I apologize for the Groundhog Day. However, it was not our intent to take down trees. In fact, when we get involved in a project, as you'll most likely know, the reason we chose to get involved in Oviedo was for the reason that I've heard all meeting long, that people enjoy living here, and you guys have protected it very well. We always look to do the same. The intent was never to come in and tear any trees down. And as you mentioned before, you guys have used our name interchangeably with developer owner, and the reality is that we buy lots most of the time from a developer. And if you all had an agreement with a developer prior that we didn't know about, we felt like this was a little punitive. So we do agree, we do not want to tear down trees if we don't have to, and we do agree that it's a shame that in such the way that they came down in the construction and it was approved in the suffocation of the trees that you all can read about, it is a shame that we weren't able to preserve them. However, we do feel that it's unfair forcing through $50,000 in charitable donation to, we felt it was punitive. So agreed for the right of the neighborhood and for taking care of the streetscape and rebuilding the neighborhood. We did agree 36 trees, placed them. It changes a little bit if you read it. It didn't just say in the common area. It does say that as we would get approval from a neighbor or for certainly the common area, but if we can't fit all 36 in there, it gave us some flexibility to put them in other locations. We did agree to tie the last CO to the completion of this. We do agree that it will make the neighborhood nicer. It will not replace the full canopy of existing trees. We understand that, but it is our request to be able to move forward with the $9,000 in the bank, the 2 for every one that was replaced, the larger tree, 6-inch caliber, and the 36-inch, or the 36 2.5-inch replacement trees, the oaks, and live on in the rest of the neighborhood.
All right. Thank you. If we have any questions, we'll call you back up. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, I have no request to speak forms on this item. Is there anybody in the audience who'd like to address council? Bob, come on up. I saw you walking late.
Thank you, Mayor. My name is Rob Brancho. I live at 455 Madison Lane in Oviedo. I stood here several years ago when this whole development was being brought forth, and I'm going to come today coming at it from a completely different perspective. I really want to thank the council, the developer, the builder, for basically developing Evans Grove in a manner very much compatible with what we all agreed to several years ago. I know there were a lot of concerns a few years ago from the neighbors that lived in that area, of which I was one of them. But I have to say that the developer, the home builder, really did follow the intent of what was proposed to be done there. In regard to these trees, as a practical matter, I always felt that it was very optimistic to hope that those trees, those particular trees along Hillcrest, were going to make it because of the grade change from Hillcrest itself. There was always about a 4 or 5 foot dip down into the orange grove that existed historically. And so no matter really what would have been done in there, once you would have leveled that land, those trees were going to always be in a pretty tough position. So I honestly think it's an improvement to not try to save something that was going to be sitting in a hole and putting some new trees that will over time really create the lovely canopy that we all like in that area. So I'm really here to really say thank you for how that development did come through. If there was anything I would comment on, which really doesn't have to do with the vegetation, would be to hope that the developer, as they finish up, is going to be able to restore some of the area along Hillcrest. There's a lot of construction traffic, a lot of, people are driving in the grass. It's very narrow. So I would hope that before they wrap up, they're going to be able to get that back in basically the original condition, which shouldn't be a big deal. But that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Rob. Is there anybody else who'd like to address council? Come on. And then I'll come over to you.
Hello, sir, gentlemen, ladies. My name is Oscar Patino. I wanted to put a face with a lot number. I am and my family will live on Lot 2. So I've come here not on behalf of David Weekly. I've come here on behalf of my family. We have been trying to build this house for over a year. And what attracted me to this neighborhood in particular was the beauty of the neighborhood, the canopy. So I loved those trees. I was fully expecting them to be there. But recently I was told, and probably the owner or the future owner is the last to know, but recently I was told because of the condition of those trees that they're not going to be sustained if they're left as is. So I know this is not your concern, but I'm going on month 12 now trying to move into this house. And the concern for my family now is that I've made arrangements to move in at a date that was promised to me by David Weekly, which is April 10th. So now the possibility of the certificate of occupancy being withheld it's going to be a hardship for my family now, because now we have to create other alternatives for living and for commuting, such that I will be a resident of Oviedo. I'm a former Navy veteran, and I just want to say thank you for your time, and I appreciate your consideration with this matter. And if there is any certificate of occupancy that could be held, that it be a different one, not that one that's going to be currently moved into soon. So thank you for your time.
We'll make a note of that. Lot 2. Leave it alone. Yes, ma'am.
So I'm Lisa Kovac, and I am at 421 Hillcrest Drive. So I am here with kind of a different opinion from what we've heard today. I am very upset about the trees, and I understand that there are some improvements to our neighborhood with the housing there, but it's always been under, we knew that the orange groves had to come down, but we were always under the impression that the trees lining that road were going to be saved. When you look at the footprint, there's no way that when that footprint was designed, those trees were going to be able to be salvaged. And perhaps, maybe it's a scaling issue, but if they had designed a different footprint, then perhaps those trees could be saved. When I went right after, when they were in the middle of developing that, I just want to share a story. When I went and they were developing that, they were in the process of initially building, I went to talk to the model home realtor, and what the realtor had shared with me is, when I asked her about the trees, number one, she was very annoyed because many of the residents have been in there discussing these trees, because we saw what was going on. We saw that there was a discrepancy between, what was being built and the viability of these trees. And her response to me is, I cannot believe the city is requiring us to keep the trees because it's going to be impossible given what's going on. And of course it's going to be impossible. It's because it was designed inappropriately to salvage these trees. And now I feel like we're in this situation where, yes, the trees cannot be remedied. Their roots were buried. In my opinion, there's no way that the roots could have not been buried given the footprint of the housing. So they violated it. They violated their agreement, and now we're losing these beautiful trees that have been around forever, and now they're proposing not to even have the 50,000. And it's not even, it's also a matter of trees, but it's not just trees. And I know it's been discussed, but the runoff and the within the neighborhood and the filling up of the Lisa Garden and the flooding in the area because of the retraction of the fill in the water development system is just not working. And the whole area, I believe, needs to have restitution made to make everything water flow correct. We're losing our canopy, and I believe very strongly that the developer entered into this regardless of whose fault it was, or I didn't know. That was the agreement, and we need to preserve Oviedo and our trees in our neighborhood.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who'd like to address City Council? Seeing and hearing none, I'm going to close the public comment portion of the meeting and move on to the pleasure of council.
Mr. Mayor? Excuse me. I have a question for Mr. Groot. Mr. Groot, if David Weekley buys this from a developer and there's an issue of these trees, does that issue run with the land for a new buyer legally?
There was a site development order that was recorded, and that ran with the land.
Ran with the land. Okay? Well, I mean, I look at it this way. I mean, we sat here and
Well,
Go ahead.
can we get a motion on the table?
Oh, you need a motion?
Yeah, let's get a motion going, then we get into discussion. Give me any motion.
Okay, well, I'm going to make a motion on...
Get to adopt, it doesn't matter, just make a
Well, I'm
motion.
going to make it Resolution 3714-19 to deny what the staff is proposing, to not accept what the applicant wants to do right now.
All right, we have a motion, do we have a second discussion?
Second.
All right, we have a second, go ahead, yeah.
So we knew this property when it came here. We had countless residents come in here and speak to us about these trees. We had Chief Drago, who used to live up there at the time. He came in here multiple times. We had former councilwoman Cindy Drago here and many homeowners up there. And I think it was the clear direction of this council to do everything you can to preserve those trees. I mean, yes, you can put all these other trees in, and I'm sure it'll look nice down the road, but, you know, it's not the bill we were sold. And we had everybody in here, all of us counting on it, and then we hear that they're all dead, and nobody wants to take responsibility for it. So, to Ms. Kovac's point, you know, we should be taking care of Oviedo. I agree. I mean, we can't bring these trees back now. We saw the arborist report, they are dead. But the penalty that we spoke about, you know, unfortunately, legally, it runs with the land. I can't in good conscience say we're just going to do what we would do with anybody else. I mean, it's a shame they died, but, you know, David Weekley is out there working on this land as well. So I feel like what we discussed at the last meeting was a fair, you know, deal to put this to rest and try to move forward. The point to me is if we take this the way it is, it sends a message to everybody else that we can go kill all our trees. And I know it's not easy when you develop property and, you know, old trees are in the way, but it's been done very well before. We brought up Riverside, the Maggie's Court tree out in Riverside. We see a tree out there that took over a whole lot. They just preserved the whole lot, and they kept the lot. So, you know, it's an unfortunate situation. I will say that David Weekley is a good company for the city. They, as the applicant said, they do work a lot with the city, and I do think they care very much for the city. But in this instance, I'm going to stick with what I agreed to at the last meeting, that, you know, they would do the amount of trees they said, the tree bank, and the penalty that way we had. I did read the letter from the attorney, and he basically said it's not his issue. Well, our attorney just said it does run with the land. So I think the deal we had on there was fair. I think it will let us all move forward. I will say it's unfortunate that David Weekley had this forced upon them, but you bought the property and you knew it ran with the land. So this is kind of tough for us. We're trying to balance you guys and our residents, but in this one, I'm going to agree with the residents that we have to stick with what we had 2 weeks ago. So that's it.
Councilman Chudnow, I think you were my second.
That was your second. And, see, for me, you said that if you didn't know, there's due diligence that goes when buying a piece of property or taking it over. It's just like if I'm buying a piece of property and there's liens on it, and I don't know about the liens, I'm stuck with the liens. I see no difference here. And to say the 9,000 and not have some type of mediation for not moving those houses back or making them smaller, or some mediations to save those trees, to me, that can't go without some time. And maybe it's because of my background. I just can't see something that's violated not having some type of sanction that goes along with it. So I would have to agree with Councilman Hank, and I can't vote for this without that.
Thank you. Councilman Britton?
Well, I tend to agree. A lot of you, there was an email stream that went out last week, and you commented that there may be may need to involve the bond relative to the original developer.
Oh, that's a different issue.
That's a different
There's some engineering issues that as I understand it, that may result, well, has resulted in the request to extend the bond, and I don't know where that lies now, but those are separate issues.
Okay. We talked about it last time, whether they could, whether we have a course to go back to the original developer, and I don't think that's the case anymore, is it?
In code enforcement activities, you deal with the owner of the property, whoever that may be.
Okay. I apologize to you, ma'am. I was up here using Google Earth. I wanted to get a perspective. It just so happens, if you do Street View of Google Earth, it's imagery from 2013. And I have to say, those trees don't look blighted one bit. They look pretty healthy to me in this image.
Wait, what?
I've had the floor, ma'am.
Oh, no, I just didn't understand.
So, I just have to say that I think there could have been actions taken to save those trees if someone had been responsible for it. And I don't have a whole lot of sympathy. I think this was just blatant disregard for the preservation of those trees, which we were specific on our intent with that. So I'm not sure if the original agreement was fair or not fair, but I think there is, according to Mr. Chudnow, there is some punitive responsibility here. So,
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
So, for me, it just goes back to the original agreement that was agreed to, and if the council that was up here at the time sat and listened to all the residents, listened to the developer, and came up with an agreement, and that was to save these trees. And these trees have consistently since then been watched, and there's notifications to the developer that they needed to clear additional land. And then about 2 years ago, roughly, these trees came up again at a council meeting, and we were told that the houses would be able to be positioned or scaled down in order to preserve these trees as well, and that was the direction at that time. And now we're coming back, and basically the trees are dead and they need to be removed. And so to me, this was just a disregard for the original agreement, and along the way, just additional disregard to what the council had agreed to between the developer and or the home builder. So to me, I don't have any sympathy either, and I think what we came up with the last time was fair and, based on the situation. So I have to agree with the other council members.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Well, I'm not going to repeat what's been said. It's obvious what the position of the council is on this particular issue. It's a shame that we're here. I mean, I'll just add that it wasn't just once, it was twice that this issue came up. And gentlemen, the second time the issue came up, you're already under construction out there. You hadn't taken these lots down yet, but you had construction going on. I know it seems in your minds that we may be being unreasonable, but put yourself on this side of the dais. And, we had an agreement on these trees. Had something been brought forth at the very beginning of the project, had we been told differently, had remediation may have been able to occur. But the developer was at that podium and said he had spoken, represented that he had spoken to your company and that you were going to change the houses to fit the trees. Now, whether that occurred or not, I don't know. But here's what I do know. You have a site development order that runs with your land. You bought the land. So, we hashed this all out a couple of 3 weeks ago. Originally we were going to fine you $100,000. So the gentleman that you had here had gotten it down to 50. Now I regret that because you're making us live it all over again. So, choice is yours what you want to do. Our order was clear 2 weeks ago. That order still stands. You have a client of yours right there sitting in limbo over this.
Mr. Mayor, before you vote, can I make a couple of comments?
Sure.
Actually, please correct me if I'm wrong as to any of y'all's understanding, but at the March 4th meeting, y'all, like I said, correct me, you had the clear understanding that the gentleman that appeared for David Weekley Homes was speaking for David Weekley Homes.
Yes.
That's what he represented to us. Yes.
He accepted our proposal.
And the other thing is, and I'm going to ask Mr. Cobb this, the meeting on March 4th is March 4th, right?
Yes.
Was it advertised in any different way than tonight in terms of this item?
No.
So the world was on notice just as much on March 4th as it was tonight about what was being decided. That's all I wanted.
Mr. Mayor?
Thank you, Mr. Groot.
Can I ask
Councilman Henkin.
Can I ask another question, too? Because I saw in the letter from the David Weekley attorney that Mr.
Which
Barr-
attachment is that?
That is...
Attachment 1, I said.
Yeah, you got it. I did see in there, and I think Brent was copied on that as well, and he's here for David Weekley. But he talked about the HOA owning the land where we asked for shade structures. Can somebody clear me up? Would that be off the table? I mean, we said we would like those shade structures as part of it. And Brent, if you want to come back up and address that, the HOA, I'd like to know, could you not work with the HOA to still get those shade structures up, or?
Hang on a second.
You sort of closed the hearing, so I don't know if you want to reopen it or not.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, hang on a minute. Well, I'd like to know about that. I could make a new motion. That one is still in limbo, though, about the developer and the HOA. Well, I guess maybe staff could say this
As a matter of law, I mean, somebody can't build on someone else's property. So to the extent that there may have been a promise to do that.
Well, let me ask you this, Brian, maybe you know this, or our staff does. I mean, usually an HOA takes over when the developer is totally...
They've taken over.
They took over already? Okay. Well, we might have to leave that up to them, but if nobody has the answer to that, but, I could make a new motion if you're all done.
Okay, let me just see if there's anything else. Anything else from the members? Okay, so the motion, there's really no new motion to make other than the motion on the table here is to deny. So that's the question we're going to call. Motion on the table is to deny resolution number 3714-19. So all in favor of that motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So, Mr. Mayor, the resolution we voted on on March 4th is still valid?
That's what I was just going to say. The resolution that was adopted on March 4th is in effect. It was final action, and that's the status of the matter right now.
Okay, so we don't need a new motion. Okay,
Nope.
all right.
Anything else, Mr. Groot?
No, sir. Thank you.
All right. Sorry, gentlemen, but you've got what was passed, and you can make all your problems go away. We're going to move on. Next item up, discussion items, we have none. City Manager's report. Mr. Cobb?
I have no report, Mayor.
All righty, Mr. Groot?
Nothing this evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank
All
you.
righty. Moving